Ekonomi negara mencatatkan pertumbuhan sebanyak 4.9% pada suku kedua. The expansion of global economic activity remained moderate in the second quarter, and while the US and UK economies continued to recover, improvements in the Euro area and Japan were more modest. The Chinese economy sustained growth of 7% in the second quarter as targeted policy measures provided support to economic activity. In the region, growth was supported by domestic demand. The Malaysian economy registered a growth of 4.9% in the second quarter, with private sector demand remaining the key driver to growth during the quarter. On a seasonal adjusted quarter-on-quarter basis, the economy grew by 1.1%. First of all, I want to emphasize that during this kind of period of volatility, it's not what the measures that we do now that will allow us to withstand and ride out this period of volatility. It is the measures that what we have done before. And what are these measures? Well, the measures to restructure our economy. Before we were export-led, and we promoted domestic demand, and in the form of consumption and investment. And these are what is driving our economy. I believe something like it accounts for 90% of our growth is domestic demand. Then what we did to develop our capital market, the bond market in particular. Before we were bank-centric, and now we have a more developed bond market that's more than 100% of GDP. The fact is that this volatility is now dispersed throughout our financial system. These are some of the measures that we took, and in the areas of vulnerability, household debt, and so on. These are the areas that we addressed well before this volatility is taking place. This volatility is likely to continue until there's certainty on the policy direction that's going to be taken in the major economies like the US and Europe. Once the normalization takes place, just like once tapering, before it happened, there was this volatility. But once the tapering actually commenced, the markets stabilize. And we believe that once the normalization actually takes place, financial markets will stabilize. So the volatility is likely to continue for several months more. Despite weakness in sentiment, the growth has still been favorable at 6.4%. Consumption has been growing at 6.4%. And this is significant. We actually expected it to be lower because there was a lot of front-loading of consumption in the first quarter. We thought it would be lower, but we were pleased to see that it wasn't too far from the long-term average of 6.7, 6.8%. That we do not intend to peg the currency. The fact that we have a flexible exchange rate regime helps our country to adjust, because if the exchange rate doesn't adjust, then prices and demand has to adjust, and therefore these external developments, the impact of these external developments will affect us much more than having the impact dispersed throughout for exchange rate adjustment, demand adjustments, and price adjustments.